This is our homepage. So this is our homepage of opendisclosure.io. And it shows a chart listing each mayoral candidate that is certified by the city clerk to be on the ballot in November 2014. And we put the mayoral candidates that have raised money on the top of the site, and here you can go scroll down. And at the bottom of the site, the ones that haven't raised any funds, so we have no data for them. I'm just going to quickly show you why we chose to have a table, like, can you go to the top? Why we chose to have a table that quickly summarized the data that would be found on the summary sheets of Form 460s. So if you were just a normal public person that wanted to find this data, you would go to the city clerk's website and you would scroll down, find your election that you're looking for, if you're looking for a candidate or a particular candidate, and then look for the race, and then pick out, say it's Brian Parker. And it would open in another window, and you would see this, which shows all these forms and when they've been filed, the date, which is really helpful for people who know what the FPPC 460 stands for and what that means, but most people don't. So they might click on the FPPC Form 410 or Form 501 or Form 700, and they're not going to find any campaign finance data on those. They're going to find information, but probably not what they're looking for. So if they're looking for the campaign finance data that we put on our website, they would go to the 460 and download that file. And it would come up in a PDF. And then go to the summary page. And then we just took what's on this summary page, and that's what we put in our table. So someone would have to go through all those steps to get to this PDF, to get to find out the total contributions received, which is right here. And this is for the period, the filing period, and this is for the calendar year to date. And Brian Parker and other candidates who have been raising money, not just this year, but in previous years, in order to find out the cumulative total raised for the entire election cycle, someone would have to go look at each Form 460 for that candidate since they filed their intention to run. So, and then add it up themselves, because each, the only thing that's carried over is the cash on hand. So we're just going back to say that it would be difficult to give this basic information, the total raised, total cumulative in the entire election cycle, as well as the number of itemized contributions, meaning someone, if they wanted to get that data, the easiest way of doing it would be, without open disclosure, of course, would be going here and pressing export all amended, and you'd press this and you'd get a huge data set of thousands of rows.
I probably don't have Excel.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Maybe I do.
Well, thousands of rows, and you'd have to go to the very last page and count how many rows. You wouldn't count, Excel would count for you, but to find out how many contributors to that candidate. But you'd also probably have to filter that candidate, because all of them are together. So if you're not used to working with raw data, it'd be a little bit difficult. So I just wanted to set an overview for why we did this and why we continue to work and make the site even better and more simple, because as you can see, just getting the numbers that we want to show you are pretty difficult.
You're on my work computer.
Gosh.
You get some random stuff.
Yeah. So we just wanted to make it really clean, and that's what we tried to do with this table. And Kyle is going to come talk about the other sections of the table and how and why we were able to display data like this, taking the data that's reported from each committee.
Yeah, so the approach was really to take that 460 form and get as much out of it as we can. So, there's some of that summary information, but it's scattered across a bunch of different PDFs, and so consolidating it into a single place and displaying it in a way that's a little bit prettier than a PDF and a little bit easier to find than under a couple of menus. And then really taking advantage of what we do get from each disclosure in the 460. So for each contribution, we get an amount, we get a name, we get redacted address information. So we get the zip code in the city, but we don't, the full address is on the form, but redacted by the time it's exposed to us. We get an employer, and we get a date, and that's it. And so all of this information is self-disclosed. So if there's typos, we get data with typos in it, and if people choose to punctuate a company name in a different way, for example, somebody spells it out and somebody uses an acronym, that's what we get. And so we really tried to make the most of this and to roll it up as cleanly as we could and to slice and dice it as many ways as we could. So we looked at it geographically, we looked at it by employer, we looked at it by individual as best we could tell, we looked at it by date, and really that's what you end up seeing on the site. So that first sort of top chart is our attempt to roll that up at the highest level. So that's taking that summary information by candidate and at least putting them side by side, and taking that summary information at the top of each form and putting it at the top of our site. So there you're going to get the total raised, you get the number of contributions, you get the percent of contributions from the city of Oakland, and you get this amount that's sort of the unaccounted for in the form. So any donation under $100 does not have to be disclosed on a 460. So we capture that as a percentage of sort of the missing piece. So there's some number of donations not included in that, and that was our attempt to capture it. And we can give an average. And so that's what this data is. Most of the questions I think you'll probably have are why didn't we slice it one way, or why did we do it this way? And it's largely based off what we had in the form. So that was our starting point, and this is sort of where it went. So who's
underneath the table, we put together a couple charts to give a quick snapshot of the data. The first chart shows where candidates raised their money. So it starts with an overview that shows who's leading in each zip code, and you can hover over the zip codes to get a little extra information, so you can see which zip code and which city. You can see how much money was raised there, and you can see which percent went to the leading candidate. So I think the tooltips are really helpful because you can see Libby Schaff is leading, it's not displaying, here, but she got 58%, and then when you get into the city of Oakland, there's a much bigger split, so Brian Parker has 29% here in 94606. Then if you click on the names of the candidates, you can see some data about where they got their money. So this is Brian Parker's chart, and you can see most of the candidates have most of their funds coming from Oakland and some from San Francisco. And you can, again, mouse over to find out how much they got in that zip code. So just to show a couple more, you can see how this moves around depending on who you're looking at. And Ian's going to talk a little bit about the next chart.
So the next chart displays the cumulative amount raised by each candidate up to a given date. One of the things you can tell is sort of when people started fundraising. Generally, as I understand it, it's shortly after they declared their candidacy, but I haven't actually fact-checked that there aren't people who waited a while. But you can see whether someone sort of jumped in and immediately started raising a lot of money or whether there was sort of a slow ramp up. You can see whether there are spikes on given dates. One of the next features we would like to add is make it so that when you hover, it will center in and tell you the exact date and dollar amount. So if someone has a large spike, say Dan Siegel right off the bat raised quite a bit of money, maybe you could see what date exactly that was on, look up Dan Siegel and that date, and then be able to tell what sort of activities he was holding on that date to be raising the money. Yeah, I believe that's it. And then who's...
Cool, and that's all on the home page because that summarizes all the different candidates, and the point is to show them in comparison to each other. But it's also helpful to drill into a single candidate. So if we scroll back up to the table of the mayors, then we'll just pick, Jean Quan. And you can click on any of them and it'll show you more specific information about them. The key takeaway on this page, the most visually evident and the most important part, is what we're calling the math bar at the top, which simplifies it a little bit down into 3 numbers and then the extra number on the right. But total contributions minus expenditures equals the available balance. And these numbers, there's some FAQ items to read about how exactly we calculate them, but the idea is that it should give the average person an overview of how what that campaign is doing, what that candidate is doing. And then, of course, we have a lot of biographical information, some other sources if you want to learn more about any given candidate. And then we have some more background statistics on the right side. Some of these are repeated from the table on the homepage, like the percentage that are small contributions. But then there are also some other ones, some added stats on this page, like the percentage of the total contributions that were self-donated. So a lot of candidates have given themselves a lot of money in the race, and it's interesting to know that 12% of Jean Quan's contributions she gave herself, almost 12. And then we also give some more background information, like when the data was last updated, because we only get the data when candidates file. And we have scripts that update it automatically after that happens, but we only get it when they file. So. Or amend, yeah. And so one more chart that I'm going to describe really quickly. And this is going to be impossible to see on those TVs, but the point of this chart is to show who is giving money to the candidates by sector. So the largest swath for all the candidates are individuals, so just normal people giving money. But then there are also the orange wedge is companies that are giving money. So those show up differently on the campaign, on the Form 460 Schedule A, so we can actually pull those out and separate them. And also, Mayor Kwan's page is interesting because she also has raised a little bit of money from unions. And that's kind of interesting as well. We'll hit on that later in a later example. And also then we also include the wedge of the non-itemized contributions. So this sort of gives a general overview of who's giving that candidate money. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike.
I think one of the questions that the Ethics Commission posed was dealing with where money came from and what companies. And so we made an attempt to consolidate companies and their employees of those companies and provide the top contributors. So here's for Jean Quan, and it's sort of surprising she's got a huge amount from the city of Oakland, but if you click through onto that, you can see that and when you click through, you get everyone who works for the city of Oakland on that page. But if we scroll down here and somewhere, no, that's not right. Anyway, the big part of it is from Jean herself, which is why it's a big one. Anyway, so there she is. Sorry. It was easy to see this morning. Anyway, so you can click through and see that. So this just lets people see what companies may be influencing the election. And also here we have a union that gave some money. And then, oops, sorry, I clicked on something. Below that is all the contributors for Jean Quan, and you can click on any one of them and see if they gave to other people. Let me just find one who did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, doesn't. Anyway, so each page shows all the contributions from that contributor, not just from the particular candidate. Or you can just search for particular contributors And one we happen to know is slightly interesting from the discussion of data is this person, Earl Hamlin, who was recorded in 3 different ways. We assume this is the same person. It may not be, but it seems likely that it is. But different campaigns recorded the information in different ways. And so it's sort of a challenge if you're doing some sort of research to know and understand that. For the companies in the chart here, we did do an attempt to merge different spellings of the same company, which is mostly a hand process. We did some processing with it, but you have to look at them and know that SF State University is the same as San Francisco State University. The University of California at Berkeley is the same as UC Berkeley. And so we made an attempt for this particular chart, to coalesce the employers so that we could get accurate information. Another thing that was surprising, that there's a large number of donors, of contributors are retired or unemployed as their positions. You notice Gene Kwan has a large money from retired folks, and that's not unusual. So it was sort of some surprising things that were found. Who's up next? Are we done?
We are done. One other thing we wanted to, will you get on San Jose?
What?
San Jose's open disclosure. Google San Jose. We wanted to introduce Vivek Basil. Where is he? He's from San Jose, from Code for San Jose, and they've actually looked at our project and made a similar one called Open Disclosure San Jose. And so we see a lot of replication potential in this, because as you can see on the boards, you can see what they're doing in San Jose for their mayoral race. But the point is that since all of the data has the same schema, it's very, there's a lot of potential there to duplicate and replicate this throughout the state of California, because California has the same Form 460s. So that's our plan long term. But now we just want to open it up to question time from the commissioners and from the public, if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Very interesting information. I know that you've all worked very hard in creating it, and we appreciate your hard work and your civic engagement. Are there commissioner comments on this informational item? Commissioner Tejada?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say congratulations. This is incredible work. I've seen this team work together for the past few months, and it's been incredible. They've been extremely dedicated, and it's great to see it all come together. So this is really exciting, and I think for me especially, because I'm someone who's a big supporter of open data, and this I think really demonstrates the potential of why it is that cities should want to open up more data and make it available for people to build tools on top of it so that they can understand. I think that this is, we're just now starting to see some of the benefits of some of the work that the cities have been putting into. A lot of work is required to make data available, and then now is where the applications and the tools that allow you to make sense of it, this is when they finally start emerging. I think this is an incredible example that I know folks from all over the country will be looking at, not just in California. I think that this is, I have a few questions actually, and I think you've hinted a little bit at this towards the end. This is using NetFile, and you're publishing this data onto Socrata. So this is something that could very easily move to other cities. Is this something that you guys are, is this part of the project? Is this part of the scope? Are people from other cities that you mentioned, San Jose, is this part of an effort to move this to other cities as well?
Possibly. Yes, we have received interest from Emeryville, and San Jose is already working, and we're trying to work with the region on this. And Yeah, you can come. About the data integration.
yeah, so-
That's replicated.
It's totally replicable. Basically, as mentioned, the Form 460 data is the same in across the entire state. And so what we did is we just wrote, actually San Francisco had already created a process that took the data from the net file system and kind of put it all together into one sort of raw data source that's actually usable in bulk, as opposed to having separate spreadsheets per year and separate spreadsheet tabs by schedule. And so basically we met with them, and San Francisco was really, really great at helping us actually replicate that process in a free and open source way, writing code. So there's actually now just free public code on the internet to do the same thing. Any city could take that code, ask Netfile to change one little tweaky thing, and then they'd basically get the same pipeline of fully integrated data out of Netfile that sort of underpins this project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important part about what we did, but how we did it, right? This is open source software, which means that what we did is online on a public website that anybody can see. And they can see it not just the final state, but they can actually see each, what we call commit, each little piece of code we wrote, which usually comes with a comment about why. They can see our iterations. If they want to see how a number is calculated, they can go to our code source and actually see it, and they can even suggest changes. And it makes it easy for other developers to copy it, to grab parts they want, to contribute back parts they think that should be better. And so really getting these projects started is always the big challenge, right? Getting an open source project to a point where it's live, it's functioning, it's doing something, and someone might discover it. And then there's momentum behind it, and sort of keeping up that code base and sort of an open repository for others to build off of is exciting. And it comes back to us, and it hopefully will provide opportunities for others to innovate in their own way.
I have one more question about this. I'm curious, I imagine this has taken a lot of work. You guys worked over the weekend as well. This is a big question in terms of the effort that's required for cities to publish data. What is it that gets you guys to spend this time to begin with? Like, what is this something that is unique here, or what is it that you guys? Why are you working on this?
Yeah, I guess I was more invested in the data. I'll speak because I'm standing near the mic. I get excited about data. I'm, as a developer, somebody who's always looking for places where there's little nuggets of data that are maybe trapped in some way that I think I can pull out and expose in some way that's going to find a better home. And so, to me, this was a chance to exercise a lot of the tools I use at work on stuff I care about, and it was an easy sort of opportunity where I could see value. I could see, something that I could work on that people could actually use, and to me, that's really rewarding. And I don't know.
I would add that I think we had a really nice team culture, and we enjoyed working together. And Lauren did a really good job keeping everybody motivated and keeping the project on track. That was awesome.
I mean, I will say, something about civic sort of contributions and engineers coming together and technology folks coming together to work on something on their own time creates a culture where people are exchanging ideas and people are in City Hall working on things across companies and sharing new technologies, and being part of that conversation is really cool.
Thank you. I think this is great, and it's great to hear about what inspires this, because I really do think that we're just at the early stages. We've only recently just passed an open data policy, and I think it's interesting to think about how this community can continue to contribute to some of the efforts that the city is working on. So thank you.
Do you have a comment, Commissioner Rivera?
Hi, I have several. First, with data normalization, you were talking about, for example, having IBM and then international, whatever the rest of it is. How are you going to make sure that the data lasts long-term and doesn't need intervention to try to code those different parts together? That's the first question.
I mean, it's an interesting problem to try and identify that IBM is the same as international data. International business, well, whatever. I can't speak anymore. But it is mostly a hand process, and that is a real issue as, if I drop off the end of the earth and some more data comes in, it's not going to get updated. And so somebody might drop.
But just that one part.
Yeah, that one part, and so you wouldn't get as much coalescing of the information, that it wouldn't drop anyone out of the database. We still display all the data, even if we don't realize those are the same. And automating that somewhat would be a good thing to do, but it's hard to, it's an unsolved problem as far as I know, and it's sort of beyond, it's a major. I know Spike was saying his company does a lot of that, and they have some tools, but most of it's by hand. And so, any sort of database like this needs attention. It's not going to run automatically.
K-Top, can we see the computer again? Or the slides? Yeah, just to show you on this, the mappings and groupings together are really only for that pie chart. Other than that, we stick to the integrity of the data. If I just will put into the contributor bar to search for California, and if you search for California, you can get this list of a bunch of different things, and you might think all of them are different or some of them are the same, but they're just reported differently by different campaigns, and we're not putting them together. So you'll see California Metals Coalition and California Metals Coalition PAC. They're both probably the same thing, but we're not making that assumption, and we're just putting the data as it was reported and reported differently by each committee. So anyone who wants to search, they can see California Nurses PAC and California Nurses Association PAC. They are probably the same thing, but we divide them. So we're not changing the data in any way in that way. The only times we group the data is to put it into a chart, a pie chart.
The point being really is how do you make sure that it lives past, you intervening every time with it. And I think that's a good way to do it, is kind of going through where you can normalize and where you can't, and where you can sub your fields.
Yeah, I also want to respond by saying, in part we rely on the power of the internet, right? I saw an article yesterday or the day before about people who look through pictures from Mars for signs of life, and people are scouring these things, and they say, maybe that's something crawling around, right? There are people on the internet who like climbing through this stuff, whether it's pictures from Mars or campaign finance disclosure forms, and to some extent, if you build it, they will come, right? So first we build the source, and we provide access to the code base so anybody can change it. So if they find a better way to roll it up, great. It's fairly simple for any engineer who's working around this kind of stuff to see stuff and roll it up. And so we take a first stab at it, and the filters we have now are going to live, but sure, they'll need updating, and we'll attempt to build organizations around it that will do it, but we also have opportunities to rely on the kindness of strangers, and I think as crazy as it is, the internet does seem to reward those kind of approaches, and so we at least have a better shot at it, we think, this way than trapped on PDFs. So the first step, but certainly not solving the problem.
So 2 more points really to go that are not technical is one of the nice things that you see this is that you constantly see, so-and-so's is funding their campaign. Oh, this organization's really, this one. So that's really good information, because that's the type of stuff you hear. That's really key. But on the other side, it also shows you, which was interesting to you were mentioning, is that retired folks and people out of work, most politicians know that. They know that information. So when you're presenting this data, they're going to be able to say, Joe always gives. I see that he's given the last few years. So it's kind of that interesting part of it that, retired folks and people that have less money to give tend to give more to campaigns. That's common knowledge in the political world. But how are candidates going to use this is the other side of the coin, to say, look at Joe's been there 5 times, I'm going to try to hit him up, or just a thought on the other side of the coin. That's it.
Are there other commissioner comments? Commissioner Whitman?
So I'm really excited about this. The nerd in me is jumping up and down and clapping right now. I think it's really useful information. It's incredibly valuable to everyone. From looking at the interface that you've designed, it seems incredibly intuitive to use. So even though I'm a nerd, I'm not a computer genius. So I appreciate the beauty of the design and how the information is presented and accessible. So thank you to all of you. and to Lauren especially for leading this, but all of you for giving your time. I'm glad that civic activity warms your heart. That's great. And we want to see more of that. I would echo Commissioner Rivera's comments in a more general sense about sustainability. It sounds like you've taken that into account already to make sure that this can live on with minimal human babysitting. But I do have a question, which is, it sounds like it was a lot of work to set up, and I'm wondering, as a practical matter, when the next election cycle comes, is that where most of the work is, or is this so automated that this can sort of live on without much human attention?
So right now it is at that point for Oakland, where if we don't touch it anymore, the numbers will keep updating. So that's cool, but our ambitions are bigger, I suppose, and for the other cities that we talked about, it would require a decent amount of setup. We have steps. We have steps of how to set the whole thing up that are documented and publicly available, along with all of the code that's necessary to do it. So it should be pretty straightforward for someone else to download our code, set it up the same way that we did, and start getting the data, as long as the data is published in a similar way as we ingest it, which it should be because of California law. So, and for the next election, as long as the campaign finance laws don't change, we should be good, right? I mean, and it should be able to expand too. Yeah, and definitely the entire project is architected in a way that it isn't hard to add new candidates, and especially for other races like the council elections and that kind of thing as well. So hopefully we'll be adding some of those soon. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, it is designed to be extensible for that kind of stuff.
And a lot of work went into, the biographies, the pictures, that's not automated. Someone else taking it clearly is going to have to, if they want to have that level of display. Also, they're not really interested in how many contributions came from Oakland. If they're in, Sacramento, they're going to have to do some changes to the code. So it's not fully automatic, obviously, and it's really, it's sort of interesting problem of how you would make something, just open the box and plug the data in and everything appears is sort of an interesting problem, but I don't think we're there yet. I think, there's a lot of stuff that happens automatically. Like, you can actually see contributions to the city council campaign on here. And we'd really like to have a sort of default page where if you get to a city council person, you could just see all their contributions. You wouldn't see a picture in a biography, but at least you'd have that much data. And that's something we hope to extend on.
Yeah, the parts that do take a lot of time, the human parts that aren't run by code, like the biographies, they're not entirely necessary. This could just be just the names and just the data. And when making the decision on how to do this, user interface was very important to us, and we were blessed to get an amazing graphic designer. So she was able to really help us out, make it visually pleasing for people, and try to get return visitors, and to make the campaign finance data come alive and be as interactive as possible. So that's why we have search bars. You can search for your neighbors, like type in whoever you know and type in yourself, see if, your spouse, see if they've given any money, that kind of thing. We're trying to make it interactive, especially with the map. And another part of this whole idea of getting it to other races are, if it was that we wanted to fully automate it, it would be something where we would probably cut out the biographies and just have it be that every time a new election came in, the new names for like city council races, the next races in 2016 would just show up. So it could be really automated, but it just might not look as pretty. And it might not have as much information and like biographical. But other than that, it could be really automated.
Are there other Commissioner Scheffler?
I want to echo what Commissioner Whitman said. I mean, you've done a great job. This is an immensely impressive product to me, immensely impressive. And I agree with her as well. Your energy for good government is really something wonderful. The one question I had is, you've done this great product, which I think is really a great product. What is now being done to let the public know it's there?
Up until yesterday, we had a big yellow bar on the top of it, which said this is not finalized, the site is still in active development, which up until yesterday, it was fully active development. And part of that is true going forward. We still have 2 more filings in October. So just because we have the data through the end of July, right? No, the end of June. We have contributions through the end of June. But that doesn't mean that the mayoral candidates have stopped raising money. But they need to file that in October. So we won't know new filings until we get them in October. And so then in October, the numbers will change. And so part of our strategy going forward, because this is the official launch, will be using social media and branching out to tell people that the site is up, it's active, you can look at it, but also come back. The candidates amend their forms all the time. Things change. October, there are 2 filing deadlines. So at the very end of the election cycle, things can be sometimes even more interesting than the beginning in terms of campaign finance. So it's not just you see it once and then, oh, I saw that site. We're going to try to encourage them that, things keep on changing and can get really interesting. So keep on coming back.
Commissioner Wyatt?
I want to echo everybody else's sentiments as someone who works in the creative world. To see all this technology marry creativity is something that really makes me feel very, very appreciative of what you guys are doing, specifically as it relates to engagement and bringing people together to understand something that typically bores people. I mean, you guys understand as technology people, you got to add a little creativity to get people to pay attention. And so I guess the question I have is, how far do you see this going? I mean, I felt as you were describing it, oh, this is like the Wikipedia of, of political reform. Do you foresee this becoming an app in some ways for people to engage as we go through and have to siphon through all of this information? Because all in all, data is, while it's exciting, it can be very tedious, and people like to really get down to the common denominator of what's important to them.
I mean, I think these questions are kind of exciting to me, that you're asking questions about what's next and how do we share it and how do we use it for future elections. And I think a week ago, I was like, how do we make the thing work, right? I mean, so it's exciting to be at that stage. And I think, I don't think we have those questions answered just because, I don't think we've stepped back and sort of thought about it. But they're good questions. And I think what's exciting about, Open Oakland and what we've done here and the folks we've met from San Jose is that there are conversations about these things happening in lots of places. And we came together around one of those conversations, and now we can think about how we can contribute back to it. And that's a cool challenge. So, yeah, stay tuned, I guess.